about the grant opportunity that's coming up, which open, well, it was open as of Monday, and give you a chance to ask questions and hopefully clarify anything that you may have, concerns about or need additional information on. My name is Eddie Avalar. I work here with the California K-12 High-Speed Network. I'm joined on today's call by Luis Wong, as well as Terry Sanders. And we're going to be taking turns navigating through this presentation and answering questions and providing information. I do want to remind everybody that this webinar is being recorded, so if you want to go back and listen to anything a little bit more closely or rehash some information, you'll be able to do so. Additionally, if you want to provide the link to colleagues or peers who may not have been able to make it this afternoon, then you can also share that with them. And so we're expecting that that link and some form of communication will be disseminated either later today or tomorrow at some point. So in terms of what we're going to focus on for the webinar, and this is very similar to what we did in the morning, we're going to go through a series of different slides, all dedicated to different items. So there's kind of the layout: background, eligibility, priorities, next steps, process, ranking and funding, awards and engineering, and resources available to you. So we'll start with background. So some of you may have been aware of last year's grant. So the state and the legislature basically allocated $27 million last year for broadband infrastructure improvement, and this year they came back with an additional round of one-time funds at $50 million. And we've been really fortunate, and it's a tremendous opportunity and a privilege to be able to try to work on solving some of the existing issues that still persist in California in K-12 with regards to infrastructure. And so it's really been a whirlwind of 2 years. And this one is going to be similar in scope in terms of what we're trying to accomplish, but the priorities have changed, the application has changed, and some of the different criteria, so to speak, or what we're looking for has also changed. So if you're looking for the full language, this is from AB 93. Again, these are one-time funds, and it's for broadband network or network infrastructure improvement around the state of California. Some of our key stakeholders include the Department of Education, the Governor's Office, the Department of Finance, and the State Board of Education. And I would also like to mention, obviously, K-12HSN and CENIC, who's been our consistent partner in terms of leveraging the California Research and Education Network that currently exists. And they had a tremendous hand in last year's grant and engineering process. So it's a combined effort, and so you'll be potentially dealing with some folks from different organizations or hearing from different folks. And so just want to make sure everybody is aware of everybody that's involved. In terms of eligibility, so who's eligible for this particular round of funding? You'll notice up there it's all public school districts, county offices of education, and direct funded charter schools are going to be eligible. And when we say all public school districts, that includes sites below them. You must have a CDS code or be affiliated with a site that does in order to be eligible. Some of the non-eligible sites you're noticing up there are ROP programs, adult education centers, and private schools. What we did this year is we did separate the application, and so that's the reason why we're distinguishing now between school site and school district. There are two types of applications. LEAs can apply for multiple school sites, or each site can submit their separate application individually, and so that's kind of in reference to that. And we've been encouraging folks that if you have a school site with external connectivity under 100 megabits per second, or if a district has one under a gig, we are recommending that they should at least consider applying for this particular grant opportunity. One of the things that we have mentioned to the group prior in today's earlier webinar is that obviously we don't know what our pool is going to look like, our pool of candidates, until all the submissions come in. And so if you are thinking you're on the fence or feel like you might meet this criteria, then we're definitely encouraging you to apply. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us in advance, send us an email, or give us a call and see if we can help in that planning and thought process. In terms of what the priorities are, again, slight differences from last year's round of funding, and I should also mention that if you're a school site or a district that has sites within the first round Broadband Infrastructure Improvement Grant from 2014-15, there's two things to consider. Number one, if you are a site that was awarded, you're not going to have to do anything. You don't have to resubmit in this round. If you were a site that was awarded but was not able, there was not a viable solution available to you from a service provider, you're going to be grandfathered in. However, if you're a site that applied, was not awarded, and was not on the no bid list, as we call it, then you can still go back into this year and reapply. Priority one, you're noticing up there, so this is really the focus of the grant, and you know, really what we're trying to attempt is to make sure that every school has the capability to properly administer the CASP, the California Assessment of Student Performance and Progress. And so as a result, because the threshold was set at 20 kilobits in terms of what students were going to need to take the test, that is kind of has been our barometer. So first priority is going to be given to sites with a current connection below 20 kilobits per second per student that are unable to administer the CASP or unable to improve their internet connection. And just a few examples of that are going to be listed below. So if a school didn't administer the test due to inadequate last mile, they're obviously going to fall under priority one, as well as those schools who may have administered the test but had to transport students out to an off-site location due to their connection. And so in some cases, we were aware that sites were busing or moving kids out so they could participate at some off-campus location. And so again, we want to remedy that, and so those are going to be our priority ones. Priority two is going to be given to schools with less than 100 kilobits and who have limited options to improve their connections in order to administer and participate in CASP. Some examples of this include, you may have administered the test but had to cap the amount of students that could participate at one time due to low bandwidth. So we'll be looking at sites in those in those types of scenarios. Those who might have administered the test but does not have capacity to test for this year, perhaps because of increasing enrollment or some other issue. Existing connection is sufficient perhaps in the short term, but it might restrict the testing environment that's coming up next year because of, again, enrollment, competing devices, and network utilization. In other words, the device may be, the network may be not scalable. And lastly, if a site administered the test, but you had to shut down, crucial business applications or operations in order to do so, so you were curbing everything else just to get the kids online and test, we're also going to be looking at those sites as well. And when we say, critical, business tools, we're obviously not referencing like Pandora or Netflix perhaps, but anything that you need your school to run efficiently. And we did hear from some cases last year where that was the situation. Basically everybody was told to get offline so that students could actually participate and do what they needed to without the issue of being kicked out of the system, for example. Priority three is kind of the last obviously one, but the one that kind of catches everybody else potentially. So if additional funds are available, awards will be made to underconnected schools ranked by the lowest connection capacity. And so we'll be looking at enrollment, we'll be looking at bandwidth capacity, and making a distinction in terms of who falls where and kind of ranking them in that order. And so again, for that reason, like we mentioned earlier, if you are interested and believe you might meet one of the criteria, then we are absolutely not precluding you from applying. It doesn't hurt to apply. And again, if you have questions, you can reach out to us at any point. I will also mention, in terms of reaching out, our contact information is listed on all these slides at the very bottom. So there's information about our website, which we'll cover later, the application site, our phone number, as well as our email if you need to get a hold of us. There are going to be some ineligible site scenarios, and the one that we drew a lot of attention to in the communications that have been disseminated thus far are the first one, which is if a school has inadequate external connectivity but has a plan in place to remedy whatever that constraint is, and there's a signed contract already established and work is in progress, you will not be eligible for this grant. And we have heard from a couple sites that have asked us very similar questions, basically saying, look, we're increasing our circuit capacity, and they're working on it, but it's not fully ready to go yet. Are we eligible? And the short answer to that is no. Just something to keep in mind. If a school did not administer the test because it doesn't have the appropriate number of devices, that is not, something that's covered under this grant. So we're not looking at the device issue. It's more, again, the external connectivity and the capacity to test based on the number of students. The other one here is the existing connection solution is sufficient at the present time, and the school site has the ability to upgrade to fiber. And so again, those would be another scenario for an ineligible site criteria. In terms of next steps, this is something that hopefully is kind of useful to you in terms of planning. I know we're already here at the tail end of August, and we will mention this, and I'll say it now, that the deadline for this application is September 30th, and so you'll want to prioritize and accrue the information you think is going to be necessary to complete the application beforehand. Definitely not something you want to wait until the last couple days to do. So in terms of next steps, applicants are going to want to visit the application site, so it's listed up there. It's BIIG2.fluidreview.com, so we're relying on the Fluid Review application system for this. Second thing is you want to identify participation with the Scenic Consortium using the E-Rate Productivity Center, and we're going to cover this in more detail in a couple slides. This is something new to this year's grant application. We're also going to be requesting a letter of agency and network utilization test results. The network test results are going to be actually something you'll have to submit directly within the first part of the application. The LOA is something you're going to download and then upload in order to actually fully submit and be categorized as submitted for potential ranking and scoring. The fourth thing is eligible sites are going to be scored and ranked. So, after 1 through 3 are accomplished, we'll rank them, score them. We're going to have outside eyes looking at this, and that's going to be approved by the Department of Education. And then the last thing here is announcements are going to be made by the CDE, and awardees will need to accept BIIG funds and provide signed assurances. One thing that we attempted to clarify in the morning is sites are not actually receiving direct funds. You're receiving a service and a certain allocation based on whatever the implementation and equipment is going to cost to actually complete the upgrade, but schools will not be receiving direct funds. They will be receiving it in the form of service. So the Fluid Review application system is where everybody's going to have to go and log in and submit their information. If you are a site or district that participated in the first round from last year, this is a separate address and a separate URL, and as such you'll need a separate login or separate account for this particular grant. So you'll have to create an account if you haven't already done so. And the system is pretty straightforward. We did send out a communication that kind of detailed some of the application process and where to press, what to do. And again, if you have any questions or concerns, you can always reach out to us, and we'll try to answer those as best as we can. So there's essentially the landing page. That's what you'll see. So you would, obviously either sign in over here or sign up if you don't yet have an account. There's going to be some information that will change as we go through the through the application process. So right now it's just got some of the core information that's necessary, as well as some contact information on there as well. For the application process, you're going to have to complete this as either a site or district. And remember, we've kind of mentioned now that we've got two different application sets or sets of questions. One for school sites, which includes charter schools and single-site school districts. And the other one is intended for county offices of education, school districts, and consortia. And in terms of what we mean by school districts, it was apparent to us last year that in some cases, even though sites may have been awarded, the district office or some aggregation point may have been the bottleneck. And so we're attempting to kind of remedy that early on. So if it's the district office, for example, that is going to be the bottleneck in terms of throughput down to the sites, then you're going to want to apply for the school district. And it may be that you're applying for both or a combination, but each of those is going to come in individually. The second thing is you're going to want to complete and upload a screenshot from the designated network utilization test. Right now we have it as speedtest.net, and so we're going to have you log in basically, or not log in, but just simply run a speed test and upload a screenshot of that as well as some additional information. Again, we mentioned you're going to identify participation in the consortium using the E-Rate Productivity Center, and that's going to be on the next slide. And then lastly, again, that LOA is crucial to us. That letter of agency allows KHOV-HSN to procure services on your behalf and put you in the consortia that will move forward after the applications are in. So we've made reference now a couple times to this EPC process or this EPIC portal, and again, this is one of the newest things. This was not required last year. This is something that is going to be an absolute must this year. And so it's going to require that districts go in with an administrative account in order to log in, and you're going to have to go through the steps to sign up to be part of the Scenic Broadband Infrastructure Improvement Grant Consortium. The build entity number, the BEN number that you're going to use to be a participant in that consortium is listed there in bold, so it's 225495, and again, that'll allow sites to participate and move forward in this process. If a site or a district is not enrolled in this consortia, they cannot proceed with grant awards and will essentially be kind of left out. So this is an absolute must. Again, something different this year, but something we're requesting that all sites, all districts go through. Some of the instructions in terms of what to do were disseminated. You can find it on our BIIG site, which we'll show later. And here's a direct link you can actually use to go there. And keep in mind that we'll also share this slide deck with you once we send that communication with the recording for today's webinar as well. In terms of ranking and funding, this is just something we want to clarify with everybody is if insufficient funds are available to award everybody, there will be a ranking priority that's applied to determine who should get priority, and that would be the case until all funds are exhausted. Again, we're not sure, obviously, until we look at the pool, until we start working with, service providers about potential solutions. So we won't know, but nonetheless, we do want to put that out as kind of an informational disclaimer. In terms of the ranking, that's going to be conducted by not just potentially KHOV-HSN team members, but outside entities as well, so that we can have, again, outside eyes looking at this. And so we'll have technical leads, folks from the Department of Ed, and other individuals who will help us with that process. And in terms of what happens after that, industry experts, including some of the staff from Scenic, will be looking at designing solutions and implementation and determining connecting locations and what to do and what the potential costs that would be associated with that are going to be. So again, this will kind of come after the September 30th submission deadline, and if there's any information that we need, we'll notify you and we'll provide additional clarification once this point comes up. In terms of procurement of the solution, so Scenic is going to start looking at all this information that's being acquired and that you are all potentially going to be submitting. And from there they will basically begin to kind of develop potential connection paths for some of these sites and figure out viable solutions. In some cases there may be alternative solutions, and it'll be a matter of a variety of different criteria, including cost, connection location, long-term benefit to the site, a variety of different things that'll come into play. Awardees again are going to receive service as part of this grant, but no funds. So again, no direct funds. And one of the things that obviously happened in the first round of funding will continue this year is there will be a super seizure date at which the district will take over the recurring monthly costs of the new circuit and whatever else is affiliated with that. So we'll handle a certain amount until that handoff date transpires, and we're transferring that responsibility over to the district at that point. And obviously we'll share all that information with you beforehand, so that you'll be able to inform your administration or your board about what that looks like. So looking at timelines, in August, obviously, again, we're already near the end of August, or at the end of August, and so we've got the webinars. The application just launched earlier this week, and the window is going to close on September 30th. And we probably can't stress that enough. It might seem like it's a significant amount of time, 4 or 5 weeks to accomplish this, but we definitely want to encourage you all to get the information you need in a timely manner, because some of it you may have to go and work with other individuals, colleagues, peers within your district or your administration to get some of that information. Once the window closes, again, we're going to look at determining what sites are going to be eligible for funding. We'll begin project planning, engineering, and procurement in the fall at some point, and that'll be work between a variety of different parties, again, including scenic. In the winter, we'll do scoring and ranking, final scoring and ranking, as we should call it, and then project awards will be, folks are going to be notified at that point. And in the spring of 2016, we'll begin with project implementation. We definitely want you to be aware that there are resources available to you, and not just obviously contacting us through the helpline or through email, but on the K-12HSN website, which I'll show you in a few moments, there are a variety of other different things that you can use to your advantage. So we have a link to the FAQs regarding the BIIG 2.0 grant opportunity. We also have a direct link to the Fluid Review system. You'll have links to this webinar as well as any that will come down the line. You'll have a PDF of the application questions for reference, and that's both for either the school site or the COE district or consortia app. And you'll also have application instructions both for Fluid Review and the EPC portal. And so those are going to be very similar, if not the same, as the ones that were sent out earlier this week. So just so we can steer you in the right direction, I'll go ahead and take you to the K-12HSN website real quick. So on K-12HSN, over in the left-hand navigation menu, you're going to see an option for broadband grants. That's the one you're going to want, so don't select the cost estimator. Select broadband grants, and under broadband grants, you'll select BIIG 2.0. So under BIIG 2.0, there is, again, some information. So there's a direct link to the Fluid Review application site. Below that, you'll have some, general information that will appear or is appearing in a variety of different locations, including some of the priorities. You'll have an informational flyer, application instructions, the 2 sets of questions, either for the site or for the district COE. You'll also be able to, again, link back to that Fluid Review application. Again, right here, it's got the webinar information about today's webinar, but there'll be a link here for the recording as well. And then our contact information, including the website, our email, and our direct line for BIIG questions. Up at the top, we'll also mention that under BIIG 2.0, you'll have additional, kind of categorized links for all the webinars. You can access the letter of agency. So this is going to be linked up through FluidReview, but it's also going to be available here. It's a PDF file that you're going to have to print, get signed, and then re-upload back into the system. And then again, lastly, you'll have the FAQs, which are primarily just a Google Doc, a view-only Google Doc, where you can go in and take a look at some of the questions that are either pressing or that we've heard folks want answered. And so the reason for the Google Doc is it allows us to go in and add additional questions as they come up. So I think what we'd like to do at this point is also take the time to hopefully answer any questions that you all may have. And so I'm going to go ahead and take a look and see if any questions have come through the chat or Q&A section. And if you haven't or you have something on your mind that you'd like to ask, we're encouraging you to do so now. So I'll give everybody a few moments to do that. And let me go ahead and check what's come in. So far, it doesn't look like there are any questions inside. Oh, we just got one that popped up. It says, if we purchase temporary service to test, will that affect our eligibility? That answer would be a no, I believe. Temporary, I guess that would require some probably additional clarification in terms of what is meant by temporary service. Really what we've dealt with in the first round of the grants, as well as what we've seen now is, some sites have a contract with a service provider. In other cases, they're on a month-to-month type basis. And so if you're looking at just temporary service, I do not believe that should affect you. And, again, it depends more on the capacity of what you're using and potential long-term scalability more than anything else, probably.
Right. I think that question probably requires a little more information. I think if it's a temporary, perhaps, MiFi solution or something that just is providing temporary solution to the students. If the school is committed to a connection, which usually requires a long-term agreement and is in progress, then that would be basically at that point the site would not qualify.
Another question is, how do the awarded services work with existing services? I guess I would probably need a little bit additional clarification with whether you're referring to the first round of broadband grant funding or existing service through a service provider. In some cases, last year there were some of the things that we had to deal with were out clauses, and so depending on if you just signed another contract for 3 or 4 years, that's something we're going to have to look at. In some cases, it works out where the same service provider is potentially the same bidder for the work that's going to be accomplished through the grant. In other cases, it's not that simple, and so again, this is probably one of those case-by-case scenarios. But it's possible that there could be some kind of transition plan, or there could be some costs associated with trying to get out of a contract early. Some other questions that have come in. If no students are taking the CASP, for example, preschool, is this site ineligible? The answer is yes to that. So really, again, the focus is for participation in the CASP. So if your site does not have students testing, then you would be ineligible for grant funds. Is this funding for construction and build out only? Is this for ISP connection charges? So it's probably a combination of those things. Again, like we mentioned, there will be a handoff date to the districts. So we'll handle the equipment, the actual construction that would take place, the implementation. We'll handle some of the assessment piece as well as the recurring costs for the first or up through the first year, and then after that we're passing it off onto the district. So it's not a long-term commitment, but it does get you up and running and off the ground, at which point you'll have to determine whether or not, if you're awarded, whether or not you want to proceed with that at that point.
Right, and this is Terry. So the district, as part of the process, will be assuming responsibility under an agreement that following that first year, when the grant pays for the ISP charges and transport, that the district will assume those charges for years 2, 3, 4, and 5 of the 5-year agreement.
In some cases, this will vary from county office to county office. They have different specific model of what's included in their service fee model, right? And so those are the fees, and ISP could be bundled into those costs.
How long, approximately, would the implementation take? That's a very good question, and probably a loaded question. I think it's going to be based on the problem that currently exists, whether there's infrastructure available, who the provider is. There's a variety of different things, equipment, what the sites have available, arranging, connection between the A location and Z location. So there's a variety of different things that would come into play. Obviously, time is of essence for us, and we want to make sure that these are up and running quickly. But that's probably a more detailed question than I could probably answer in about a minute or two.
And in cycle 1, there were some experiences we had where the bid came in from the commercial provider, and it did not have special construction charges. It had an installation fee that was, pretty low, but no special construction, which led us to think that that might happen very quickly. And I think as a result of commercial providers across the state having lots of work on their plate, those have not necessarily come in quickly. So we are completely unable to predict the timeline in any kind of blanket way, and even when we know some of the specifics, it can be really difficult to give dates.
Right. Yeah, and there's some issues around issues of right-of-way and things that the service providers really don't know until they are actually doing the work. In some cases, they're trying to go through certain routes, and then they stumble into certain issues where it might require special permitting. So those tend to delay these projects more. So, again, a lot of variables to really put a hard answer to that one.
Will dark fiber from the local county office of ed to the LEA be eligible?
Well, I think it could be. It really depends on a lot of things. Primarily, I think, first of all, the county office would have to respond to the request for proposal that will be put out by CNIC on our behalf. 2, we would have to look at whether it's the most cost-effective solution, or are there any other alternatives. So certainly, I think dark fiber will be considered. And it has to, certainly meet all the criteria.
And if that LEA proved eligible because of its connection before this work we're undertaking.
Right. We do know that the FCC and with the new E-rate changes are looking more favorable at dark fiber, but certainly there are certain conditions that have to be met in order to be able to have the E-rate be able to fund those types of bills.
What date is the LOA due? So that's going to be due at the same time that the application is due. So you'll have until September 30th to submit both. The way it's set up in the Fluid Review system is Part 1 of the submission process, the application. Part 2, which finalizes submission, is the LOA upload. And so you wouldn't actually be able to complete the application process without both of them being in. So do keep that in mind. If we already have connectivity that is capable of over 1 gig, but we are only at 300 megabits, and it is just a matter of opening up bandwidth, should I apply?
You're not one of the hardships that this money was intended for if you've already got that scalable solution in place.
Wanted to confirm, internal connections are not part of the grant. For example, if there were issues with wireless connectivity that disrupted last year, the service to enhance wireless would not be included.
Yeah, that's another loaded question. So the priority of the funding is making sure that schools are able to successfully test for the next cycle of testing, the CASP. One of the things that we've looked at is we want to make sure that the external connectivity issue is resolved. For those sites that do apply, if after resolving their external connectivity, we find that there are issues that are preventing them from testing, we may consider looking further into the internal network infrastructure and help provide relief on their testing facilities or the labs that they use, and see whether other bottlenecks may be out there that could prevent the schools from testing. The funds certainly are would not be geared towards upgrading the entire network infrastructure of a school. I think that's not the intention. So those will be looked at on a case-by-case basis. Certainly priority will be looked at as the external connectivity piece.
When the funding of the contract transfers to the district school after year 1, is the district or school paying the consortium's post-E-rate costs for the original contract, or does the district need to submit requests for their own discount? So they're continuing with whatever the agreement states. So what will happen is there will be an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, if your site is awarded, and in there it will detail the monthly recurring cost for that particular upgrade, and that will be essentially what the district would be paying. However, it'll be your responsibility to continue to submit after that point.
We think it will look like, so we're just coming to that point with the first cycle of sites. We think it will look like the district filing a Form 471 that refers to the scenic submitted Form 470, so that the discounts are garnered. You get the discount, but now they become a discount that the district receives rather than the scenic consortium receiving it.
Yeah, and we built in what we call a supersedure process, and so that supersedure process is it's a legal mechanism to transfer the ownership or the contract from the scenic consortium over to the school district that has received the circuit. So at that point, the transfer of contractual obligations gets met, and then the district at that point in time would just require to file a Form 471, and then be able to take ownership of the funding as well. So it is a bit of a technicality, and we will provide support through that process as well.
We see a question about there being an existing letter of agency where a site is part of the existing scenic consortium for node site services, and we ask districts up and down the state to join that consortium. That has to do with expenses for the circuits that go from the node site up to the hub site. There are different circuits that are covered by that consortium, and this is a separate big consortium operated by scenic that people need to join via the new LOA.
So this is a separate LOA. It's a very different LOA, and we do need to have an LOA for each of the sites that are going to apply. In this case, if it's a district, an LOA that covers the district for all their sites.
Will we know the cost before any work is done, or are we tied to payments? So kind of as we mentioned, there will be some notification. That MOU will have to typically get approval from the board, so your school board. And so in there will be costs detailed based on what we know about the project, as well as a recurring cost. So you'll know beforehand with close proximity to the final cost in terms of what you'll be paying. There is some potential deviation that we've seen based on small changes in paths or something like that, but for the most part you will know in advance.
Yeah. So the timing of the steps is this: we take the applicants, we determine who's eligible, we put them on a bid list, and the bids come back, and decisions are made about who to award the circuit to. Once that decision is made and we know the cost, we communicate to you in the request for the Memorandum of Understanding what your gross cost will be and what the estimated net cost will be. So those are the figures you know before you sign up. And if you don't sign up and join the consortium, we don't move forward on awarding the circuit. So if we're not going to ask you to blindly say, yes, I'll pay. You'll know the expenses. And we also are not making commitments to any of that work until we have the commitments.
So if we do not have any of the hardships, we can't apply. Just need to verify.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a response. Yeah, that's a response from the question.
Okay, it looks like we got to the end of the question list.
I know there was one that came in this morning, or after this morning, there was a question asked. A district was concerned because we mentioned the new electronic portal for E-rate, EPIC, and their position was, we didn't apply for E-rate. It doesn't sound like we're eligible. Everything, all the steps that we're talking about are prospective. They're in the future. So we need you to join it, set your portal up and join the Scenic BIIG consortium so that steps can be taken on your behalf for this work. But there isn't anything today that needs to have been done already in the E-rate world. Everything's ahead of us. So no one is disqualified because they're not already E-rate participants.
Okay, it looks like we got to the end of the question set, so I'll give folks an opportunity if they'd like to ask anything else to please go ahead and do so now. We still have a little bit of time, and if not, we shall proceed. So it looks like everything's been answered or asked thus far. So number one, we definitely want to encourage you to consider what your options are in terms of where you fall under priorities and whether or not you think you should apply. Again, if you haven't already done so, this message should have gone to all districts and all site administrators across the state of California, but we're definitely encouraging folks to have participatory conversations internally at the district level as well as at the site level and with the county offices of education about how and what this may look like in the near future. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us either via email or phone, and take a look at the KHOHSN website for additional information. We will try our very best to provide you new communications as well as new updates as they come in. If you have questions that come in, we'll try to answer those in a timely manner.
The FAQs will be dynamic. So as we see questions come in, we'll be adding those to the FAQ on the website. And please check there. And there's a good, hopefully we will have responded to questions that come up as you face them when you come upon them.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things we said in the webinar, in the earlier webinar this morning, that feel free to reach out if you have any questions. We want to make sure that our schools and applicants feel very comfortable through this process. You may also consider contacting your County Office of Education if you have any questions. They've been really helpful and instrumental in helping us carry this grant forward in round one, and we foresee the same for round two. So there's a lot of resources and support out there, but certainly, and if you don't know who to contact, you can call us and we can assist there as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, and have a great rest of the afternoon, and look forward to seeing your application in the system.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.